Oh, look at, and there's Riley and Travis.
Riley Day. Travis.
This is like
Barry.
a big party.
It is a big party. Yeah.
Oh, look at Nani thinks like Nani's making it look like he's working.
I know.
Even has the thumbs up.
Love your space, Nani.
Oh, look at there's Samantha Falloon and Mindy Jameson.
There's Mindy Jameson. Mindy Jameson, you have a sliding barn door behind you.
She does.
Beautiful. Only a Jameson creation.
We can't see Lucas, but we can see his name. And Wendy.
Nida.
And Rita. It's like Cheers.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Spencer, if you wouldn't mind while we're talking, if you could walk, please.
Is my microphone working now?
Sure, yes.
I got a little bit of a sweat going here. Riley's been making fun of me here. I'm trying to get everyone on the treadmill thing under the desk. So
We were commenting that one of these days on your social media, we'll see a post where you've got like a line across your head where you fell off and smacked yourself or something.
it only lets you go 4 miles an hour when it's on the under desk mode.
Okay, so
Aaron,
are we going?
are we ready?
Yes, I'm just letting a couple more people in.
Couple more
Oh, a
people
couple
in,
more.
for sure.
Okay.
You can't quite see everyone. It's hard to see everyone. Here's Unique.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm sure most people on this call know who we have doing this for us today, but if not, I will fill you in a little bit. So we have Kathy Snellgrove and Jeff Rosier, and they are the founding partners of Siere, and they advise business owners in the growth and profitability of their businesses. And like most founding businesses, Siere started out in a garage, and with hard work, determination, and the support of this community, they have grown to now employ 5 people with a geographical reach into Western Canada and the United States. Kathy and Jeff are passionate about working with business owners and has a proven track record in advising them to achieve impressive results. They believe a single business does not grow in isolation. They love to write and have co-authored 2 books together, and they write a weekly blog geared towards businesses and leadership, and continues to assist future entrepreneurs in fulfilling their own business dreams. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the founding partners of Siere.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everyone. Thank you, Aaron. I have one confession to make, though, to start with. The weekly blog. I write.
So weekly?
I write.
That's what Jeff tells people. And nobody believes them.
Nobody.
We're super excited today, and
Yeah.
we're really excited that you guys have all decided to join us. Actually, strategic planning isn't always everybody's favorite topic,
It's
but Jeff and I kind of have a tendency to kind of geek out a little bit about this
We
stuff.
love this
so
stuff.
we're really, really excited that you decided to join us. So I know this is going to shock many of you, but I'm going to actually start off with a little bit of a story. Most of you know I love telling stories. I have the opportunity to work with a really cool guy. He actually owns a oil company down in southwestern Manitoba. And I first started working with Greg probably, I think it'd be about 8 or 9 years ago. And he is, if can you imagine owning an oil company? He has seen all kinds of good times, and he has seen some really bad times. And he actually, he went from $100 oil to like $42 oil, and he's gone through all kinds of changes. And the reason that I talk about Greg is when it comes to setting strategic plans of where you have to take a company, when you are in a sector like that and you run something quite as big as that, It's important to be looking out over a long, long horizon. And one of the things I commend him about is the fact that he has been able to survive where a lot of other companies haven't, because he has always had a really long-term vision. And that vision has really carried him through a lot of really difficult challenges. And
I think interesting in those difficult challenges sometimes for Greg, with his long-term view, he's a little more even keel
he can be.
than some might be in some of the situations he gets into.
So how many of you are really interested in expanding your strategic planning and thinking? That'd be a good thing.
I thought they just came to see us. No, I'm just, yeah,
Well, hard to say.
hard to say. Just based on
Maybe
Aaron.
they came
Yeah.
to see you.
Yeah. How about interested in aligning your team and culture inside of that plan?
It's part of
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Spend
And how many of
today-
you like to walk away from today's session with at least one tool that you can apply right away? Okay, if all those things are important, then I think you're in the right place.
And I think we can probably agree that the last year has been like
No other.
no other for most business owners, and the need to change quickly has been present, ever present. So
So one of the things that when we think about it, if we think about strategic planning, I'm not sure if we went back 24 months ago that any one of us could have guessed that we'd be.
Yeah, I know. I saw. Oh, it won't let me log in.
What's wrong?
someone's trying to log in. That's okay.
Okay, we're gonna keep going.
Join us.
I
So there would have been a day back that we hit the pandemic, but we couldn't have planned for this. We
And
certainly couldn't have.
And one of the things that we know is ultimately there's going to come a day when we will come out of this.
Yeah.
There'll be a day when
Fewer
we
restrictions.
return, and hopefully like next
Some
week.
announcements
Next week would be good. But we know that, come a year from now, we'll be in a different cycle. We'll be hopefully doing things that are quite a bit different.
which we thought was pretty cool. The chamber asked us to talk about this today because looking out, we're going to get to open up some things again, and some planning around that I think would be really, really prudent for business.
We actually hope that today, what you learned today, you will be applying out a year from now, because on the downside of any kind of thing that happens in a business community, the opposite side also happens. And so those companies that are looking out further beyond just what's going on today will have the opportunity, will be able to create different opportunities that they might not have ever been able to experience had this not happened.
So our guess is today, some of you have in the past done some strategic planning. It's been around for a long time.
It has been. Actually, strategic planning in itself has been around since about the 1920s, when in Harvard Business School, way back in
Way
the
back.
20s, they developed the Harvard policy model, which is really what most people consider the basis of today's strategic planning.
Many companies conduct strategic planning, whether it's businesses, not for profits, any type of organization trying to get to a destination or build something.
So
Run strategic planning.
if anybody have ever done anything with Jeff and I before, you know that we like to have a little bit of audience participation. So we decided
Yes.
that this time, since we're doing it on Zoom, we would do
Have
it with
some
poll
polls.
questions. So I think we maybe have our first poll question. And so you're going to get a chance to vote. Hopefully, we're going to cross our fingers. Ladies.
There we
There we
go.
So how many of you have been involved in strategic planning? Yes, I've done it before, or no, this is a first. And then the second question, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not so much and 10 being loved it.
How much did you enjoy the experience?
How much did you enjoy the experience? So we're gonna get you to submit those quickly. We're gonna give you like another, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the results are, we don't know.
We don't know.
Oh, look it. We have 86% of people that have done it before. And let's see. We have,
One that liked it a lot. So most,
oh,
the highest percentage being an 8, so not enjoying it very much.
yeah,
Not enjoying it very
no,
much.
the other way around.
Is
They
the
loved
other
it.
way? They loved
So
it.
they loved it. That must be why they're here. Most of them liked it. So we're gonna see if we can
Beautiful.
make it, we're gonna ramp that up.
Ramp it up a little bit.
Okay, so let's talk about what strategic planning is, and we're gonna get the first slide. Okay. So when we come back down to the idea of strategic planning, oftentimes we find people that have usually done it, but they don't really like the process.
The reason being is it generally makes people uncomfortable.
Now, one of the things that we know is that we generally like certainty. As people, we like to be pretty certain of what the future is. And when you have to do strategic planning, we're asking you to look out into the future that somewhat is uncertain.
Just look at things over the last year with the uncertainty people have had. It kind of makes people grouchy.
Actually, I had a
It
friend,
makes them unhappy.
we actually had a business owner come in here like last week, and she's a friend of ours, and she's unfortunately she's been shut down. And one of the things
Yes.
she had taken, she's heard me before talk about people wanting to be certain. And she said to me, Kathy, you know, when you told me about being certain, I didn't believe you. I thought you were crazy. I'm an entrepreneur. I like
I
uncertainty.
like uncertainty.
And she goes, and now I realize, like, I want certainty. I want to know when my business is going to open. I want to know when things are going to go back. I want to be certain. And she goes, I am really grumpy when I'm uncertain.
We know that business owners like contained uncertainty. So uncertainty they can be certain of,
Yes.
and they can work through. Certainty and uncertainty they can be in control of is certainty for them.
And so when we ask people to look out, when we think about strategic planning and we're thinking about way out there, people get uncomfortable. They get uncomfortable because they don't necessarily know what the future is going to hold.
They don't know for sure what could happen.
And so we hear things of them say like, well, how am I supposed to know what's going to happen? Or how do I know what's going to happen in my
Technology
industry?
is changing so fast. How can I predict what we may use?
You know, all I'd be doing is making a guess. And why can't I just focus on
Why
the
can't
here
I
and
focus
now?
on what we're doing now? And if you think about it, again, going back to the pandemic, we couldn't have remotely predicted where we'd be today. We couldn't remotely predicted how fast some applications in technology and things we do in our business have changed. So the process itself of strategic planning forces us to look out into the future and take a guess about what the future holds for us.
One of the things we know is that we might not necessarily be able to predict the future, but when you can start thinking about what the future you want to create, it allows you to get there. It
Yes.
allows you to have at least have a fighting chance of getting there. And so you might not know what the future holds, but we do believe that you can actually create it if you get thinking about it.
15 years ago, we'll say, did Apple know we'd be walking around, or did we know that we'd all be walking around with a phone in our pocket or a phone attached as an appendage?
Could you imagine being the investor group that sat there and listened to the guys from Uber come in and describe their future? You know, like we're a bunch of strangers.
We taught our kids not to get in a car with strangers.
So what we're going
Right.
to do is we're going to build an entire business model on the idea that we're going to have people get into other people's cars and that they're going to do it on an app. Can you imagine?
Do you think Elon Musk is certain about people going to Mars?
No. But you know what? Part of strategic planning is looking farther out and saying what possibility exists. Again, you might not know exactly what's going to happen, but there's another reason that we get uncomfortable about it is if there's not only the fact that we don't necessarily
No, for sure.
like to be we like to be certain, we also like to be right.
And creating a guess or taking a look out into the future brings in the opportunity to be wrong.
It does. We want to have certainty. And so a lot of times when we hear that, you know, I just like to be like right here, right now, the challenge is right here, right now is safe. We know kind of what's going to happen tomorrow, but we don't necessarily know we'll be right in what our prediction is 5 years from now. And so that's the second part that makes us a little uncomfortable when it comes to doing strategic planning is how do I pick where I'm going to be? And how do I know if it's exactly where I want to be?
Now, in relation to that, one of the challenges to implement any strategy entails making a decision, and making a decision implicitly cuts off possibility. So
How many of you sat with your spouse or partner and went,
want to go for lunch?
sure, where do you
Where?
want to go?
I don't care. Where do you want to go?
I don't, no, I don't care. Where
How
do you want
often
to
do
go?
we hear this discussion, right? And
It drives us all nuts, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is that
we
if
don't eat.
if we don't make a decision, we don't eat.
We don't eat.
But as soon as I make a decision and I don't listen to somebody else, then I maybe he's got a better idea than me, or maybe I've got a better idea than he's got. And so we don't make any decision. Strategic planning requires us to start making those decisions.
So what we say is, if you don't make decisions about where you're going to take your business, you could fall victim to whatever restaurant you choose, and you know that you like some better.
So this is going to bring us actually to our second poll question, Sam. So according to Cascade, what percentage of leaders believe their organization is good at developing strategy?
Good at developing
And you're going to
strategy.
see the question in just a minute. So according to Cascade, what percentage of leaders believe their organization is good at developing strategy? Everybody got their answers in? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And look at, I can count down. Okay. Oh, look at this is a smart group. So 68% is actually the answer. Interestingly enough, though, down from 80% in 2012. So we don't, in terms of who
Yes.
they surveyed, they think we're less strategic than what we used to be.
And I question personally in that one whether businesses feel things are speeding up with technology and some different pieces, so they acknowledge they could be better.
They could be better.
And that's the cool part about entrepreneurship.
Okay, so we have our slide up and we're just going to get rid of, there we go.
There we go.
So a strategic plan is simply a framework that guides an organization's choice of action.
in the next slide, what is strategic planning? ING. There we are.
There our girls got it. She's awesome.
Strategic planning is the planning practices intended to formulate the strategies contained in that framework.
So we like to use really simple examples. So we're going to use an example called Spice Up Your Life, which is on the next slide. So let's say that you're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, you know what? I really want to spice up my life. Now you could do a lot of different things. You could go on a trip.
You could go to a concert.
Look at this, like Aaron just seems to
There we
read our
go.
minds.
Yes.
You could find a little romance.
You could jump out of an airplane.
Now, each of these strategies could be used to spice up your life.
Each of them has pros and cons.
Some of them are going to be, of course, nope, back up.
There we go.
Some of them are going to be more available to you than others.
Some might take more effort and
More
resources.
More importantly, some may seem more desirable to you.
That means you'd enjoy them more. They'd be more palatable to you. You'd enjoy them.
Now, as you're actually considering those different strategies, you're going to think about things like, how much money do I have? How much time do I have? Do I have, am I close to an airport? Am I not close to an airport? Do I see any eligible guys out there or don't I?
There'll be lots of options, but there's probably only one or two that are really going to fit the bill for you.
So let's say that you decide that, you know what, I'm going to spice them. I'm going to jump out of an airplane. As soon as, okay, Aaron.
Next slide. Yeah.
As soon as you jump out of that you decide that you're going to jump out of the airplane, then it becomes easy for you to start thinking about, what do I need to do? What's my action plan to go implement that strategy?
So you can start the planning process.
So you might need to find a program or take lessons, or maybe you think, oh, you know what? I want to take a video. So I need to go get a GoPro. Oh, hang on. I got to learn how to use a GoPro.
You may realize in the planning process, you're missing things like jumping lessons. It may take time to take jumping lessons. And the clearer you are in what you need to do to make it happen, the more attainable it becomes.
Now, this is a really, really simple example, but this is really the process of narrowing down. When you think about spicing up your life, there's tons and tons of ways you could do that.
Notice you're not going to a concert now, you're jumping out of an airplane.
But now you're wanting to narrow those down. And as you narrow those down, it gets easier to implement plans and find the resources that you need to make those happen.
So the strategic planning we're talking about is the same, it's just related to your business. It's related to your organization.
So we're going to go through the steps that we use when we're going through strategic planning. And the first one that the first thing we talk about is we talk about vision.
Next one there, Aaron.
Here she
There we
is.
go.
Now, this is kind of when you think about vision in its broadest terms, it's kind of like picking the destination, where you want to get to. So if you were going on a road trip, you could say, I want to go on a road trip. That'd be a strategy, but you need to pick a destination.
Where are you going to go?
And so a destination is really that vision.
Now, when it comes to looking out for smaller companies, you might only be thinking out 3 to 5 years from now. And even that
Might
seems
seem like a stretch.
significant challenge. But we know that larger companies are looking out 10, 15, and 20 years because of those big ships
Those
turning.
things take a little bit
of time to turn. So looking out 3 to 5 years may seem like a challenge.
Now, remember, there's always a lot more certainty when you're closer. So when you're thinking about, what am I going to do tomorrow versus next week versus next month versus 6 months from now versus a year from now, the certainty changes as you go out in time.
Regardless, developing a vision for your company can take some work, but it's a really important first step.
And the reality is if you want your company to grow, you have to have a bigger vision than where you are today.
So some questions you could ask inside of that are the 3 to 5 years, where do you want to be?
What type of customers do you want to serve?
What types of products and services do you want to provide them specifically?
And who do you want to be as a company? So maybe you want to be a more socially responsible company, or maybe you want to service a different kind of customer, or maybe you want to be in a different region. All of these things are part of that visioning. So now once you've actually got a vision, so you kind of have a picture of where you're wanting to go, next slide and the next step is, at this point, you're going to want to take some inventory.
Take an inventory.
You want to understand what tools you have, what resources you have. You want to see what opportunities may be out there that you hadn't thought about in terms of your vision. And you're going to want to understand some of the threats.
So the tool that we're talking here, of course, is a SWOT analysis. And most people are pretty familiar with the SWOT analysis, or familiar with hearing about a SWOT analysis at the very, very least.
There's actually a lot of different tools that you can use, but this is the one that most people actually understand. It's easy. It's pretty easy to understand. It's just a fun fact on it.
Fun fact,
is
Albert Humphrey was led a research study out of Stanford Institute for Fortune 500 back in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
He was credited with the idea, but he himself never claimed it.
No.
So
who knows?
we don't know for sure.
But I can tell you a whole lot of people understand it.
So
remember when we talked back to spicing up your life? This would be the thing that would actually help you do that analysis of which strategy you would employ. So we're going to go through this one section at a time. First one we're going to talk about is the strengths. So we'll talk about the good stuff.
The good stuff. We're going to list your company's strengths.
So we'll go next slide. There we go.
So
a strength is really an enabler. It's one of those things that's going to help you to achieve your vision. And the important thing to understand is the strengths that you're talking about is about your company, about you and your organization. It's internal to your organization. It's the strengths within your organization.
It makes your company uniquely
you.
Regardless, though, of the section of the SWOT, it's important to be realistic and fact-based. And what we're saying in that, stating things like, we have good quality, we have great customer service, is our relative statements. And we're looking for specifics. So good as compared to what?
Right.
Would be a statement in that. So An example to take that further is if you've won an award
Right.
for quality or done something to stand out in your industry in those regards, that in and of itself could be a strength. But the belief that we have great customer service in and of itself is not a strength. It's a comparative statement.
Just to add to that one just a little bit, is good quality and sorry, I got to just say
You
this.
gotta, yeah.
Good quality and good customer service.
This one never is escaped.
Every time we talk to any business, those are the two things that they tell us. And all I'll say is that you should have good quality and you should have good service if you want to stay in business.
Your competitors believe that also.
Everybody believes they have good quality and good service. And so just don't put those down in your strengths because they're just expected. They're not the thing that necessarily makes you amazing. There's other things that are more, that's the thing that keeps you in business, not the thing that's going to grow your business. It's just expected. Sorry.
Totally. That we're never going to get away from that in any discussion when it comes to these because we run into it so often.
So let's talk about some specific
specifics,
examples.
Yeah.
So specific examples would be, we've been in business for 13 years.
We have available cash for investment of $85,000.
We were named for the top 5 in our industry.
Or we added a new customer interface to our website and we're the only ones in our industry.
So remember, specific, and they're actually fact-based. They're things that you can actually say, okay, these are things that I fundamentally know is a strength in my business.
I think Mr. Cooper said that they're not a strength if everyone in your industry has it. And I would agree.
I would agree. It's
would
the thing
agree.
that keeps you in business. So now we're going to go to weaknesses.
The other side of the coin.
Other side. These are the things that disable you from getting to your vision. You might have this idea of where you want to go, but there's things that potentially are holding you back from being able to get there.
When we're doing a SWOT analysis with our clients, we often do strengths and weaknesses together. There's always a good discussion behind whether something is in and of itself a strength or a weakness.
Right. If you think about it, things that were strengths can become weaknesses.
24 months ago, you may have gone online with your products and services, and that may have led your industry or group online. And today it may no longer be sufficient.
Yeah. So just different ideas around that. So we often do these together back and forth, and it always creates a lively discussion because sometimes people will see things that are strengths and others will see the same thing as being a weakness.
So again, with weaknesses, remember, be specific, be specific, be specific.
I think they
Facts
might
and
get
data.
tired of us saying
They might
that
get tired of
before.
that, yeah. And so some examples of that are we are not able to attract a production manager with experience.
Our equipment is aging and we have no plans to replace it.
80% of our business is with one customer.
And we only have one supplier for a certain widget. So those are examples of weaknesses.
So now we flip over to the other
You know,
side,
other side.
to the opportunities and threats.
Now the reason this is, we're gonna get,
Next,
There we
we go.
the reason that this is considered, we consider this the other side, is this is now, once you've seen the inventory inside your company,
We're going outside.
now we're gonna go look at the environment, your industry, the environment that you're operating in.
An opportunity is something that could be available to you and your company.
Now, they're external to your company, so they're really talking about what kind of things do we want to go after. Now, sometimes people mix up opportunities with strategies. And the example I'm going to give is somebody could say an opportunity is I could go and upgrade my equipment.
It's not an opportunity.
It's not an opportunity. That's in fact a strategy. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later because you're still dealing with the inside of your company.
It's a strategy to resolve a weakness inside of the company.
So opportunities would be things like I could enter into a new market. So maybe the Winnipeg market.
We could acquire a competitor.
We could launch a different product.
Our services could be sold online to an expanded market.
Or an opportunity could be like low interest rates mean it's cheap to borrow money. Those are all opportunities or examples of opportunities.
That is a question.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that
It kind
is.
of flipped off. So
Yes.
that's okay. Whatever
We're gonna-
that was, we'll get
We
to
will
that.
get to that in a question piece. So threats.
Oh, just sorry. We probably should mention that we actually are going to give you 2 different times to actually ask questions. So we're going to make
Yes.
sure we get to everybody's stuff before we're done today.
Yes. So flipping over from opportunities to threats.
Oh, yes.
People, I have to mention one thing is Kathy loves to talk without notes, but sometimes we have notes so that we can keep to the points and make sure we deliver everything we intended to cover.
These people all get exactly what I'm saying.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they know exactly what I'm saying.
We were just going to flip past threats there,
No.
but we still want to talk about
We
them.
want to talk about threats. So again, a threat is external to your organization. These are things that you don't necessarily always feel really in control of. They're things that could come and make it difficult for you to achieve that vision.
A threat could be something like the American dollar increasing in value as compared to our Canadian dollar.
A morphing pandemic virus that may mean that people are not in-house are not going to be able to shop as soon as we think.
Or changes to bank borrowing thresholds, meaning it's more difficult to borrow money and obtain operating lines.
Yeah. So those would all be examples of threats, not necessarily things that we're in control, but things we need to be aware of, because we need to kind of make sure we protect ourselves in our companies as we're striving to get to our vision.
So in a summary, things to keep in mind with SWOT.
And we're going to go to the next slide.
Next slide, Aaron.
I don't know that we've said it enough.
Yeah, facts and data, people.
Be specific.
Facts and data, be specific.
The next thing that we're going to caution you, especially if you're a small business owner or a small organization, is we're going to challenge you that really it's to avoid tunnel vision. It's really about getting diversity of thought and ideas. And we're seeing more small business actually look at bringing on boards and bringing on other types of advisors and other resources for this reason, because we can kind of have the blinders on in terms of ourselves. So for example, we can think we're really good at something, and then somebody else comes along and goes, oh, by the way, actually you're about 3 years behind, and you go, oh, okay. So we say, make sure that your team doing a SWOT should have some diversity to it, come from different experiences. If it's within your company, that you bring in different players within the company, you bring in the marketing department and the production department, and make sure that you have a really good group of people to really talk about where do you want to take your company.
And then remember, the clarity of analysis is directly proportionate to the time and resources you invest in it. So invest the time and money, it will pay you back.
Yes.
Put in the effort. Take it seriously. It will help in the later stages as well.
Which is going to bring us to our poll question number 3. Oh, back up. There we go.
Poll question number 3. In 2020, according to Cascade, what percentage of strategic plans are believed to have failed because leadership could not stay focused?
Can you imagine business owners being not focused?
Because they have a lot of things on the go.
Sometimes.
Options.
So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Survey says
C. Oh, 51. These guys thought there was more. You guys really think it's actually, the actual answer is 39. So 39%. So now we've completed the SWOT. So let's just kind of recap. So what we've done is we've gone through and we've kind of got a vision of where we want to take the company. And we've talked about, okay, all of the resources, the strengths that we've got, some of the weaknesses we want to avoid. And now we kind of know some opportunities and we've got some threats. Okay. So we've done this inventory of both internal to our company and our environment. So what's the next step? Next step
is developing the strategies. So we define a strategy as a framework, either implicit or explicit, that guides an organization's choices of actions over time.
Yes. So we're going to go to the next slide. We have a really cool, or what we think is kind of cool. We use the acronym USED in order to develop strategies. And the approach that we use is we ask these questions. So
For each one of them.
Yeah.
Each one of them.
how can we use each strength?
How can we stop each weakness?
So what do I do to stop a weakness? How can we exploit an opportunity?
Take advantage of those opportunities.
And how can we defend against each threat?
And if you answer each one of those, you'll begin answering questions to start developing strategies that will drive you towards your vision.
At this point, one of the things we recommend is that it's really the brainstorming of how it is that you could, use your strengths or how you could stop those weaknesses. It's not
Open
to
up an
say that you're
opportunity.
going to employ every strategy, but at this point, you're really trying to pull out all of the different kinds of strategies that you could use to get to do those things and to get to your vision.
Strategy examples. Next slide, Aaron. Thank you.
So strategy examples are things like you could launch a derivative product.
You can engage the services of a professional to support your growth plan.
You could enter into some sort of different market.
You could secure a different supplier with a specific technology.
You could change a business model or a pricing model a pricing approach that you've got. All of these things would be different kinds of strategies, and you could have a pretty exhaustive list of strategies when you complete going through that process.
I think it's important to remember that dependent on the strategy you employ, you could be involving different departments. Like one could involve sales, marketing, and finance,
Mhm.
or one could be more driven by product development, production, and purchasing. So getting really clear on the strategy tells you who would be important in that.
If you're if you're a small business, sometimes the challenge is that you wear like a lot of different hats.
A lot of different hats.
It's really important to look at the strategies once you've got this list of strategies that you could employ and start narrowing it down. You're really at that point where you're looking as what's the 2 or 3 or 4 things that if I really, really focus on, they are going to get me the quickest to my vision. And one of the cautions that we have in narrowing them down is a lot of times people will pick them based on what's safe. And we'll tell you getting to your vision isn't going to necessarily happen by just taking the safe. You're going to have to get pushed a little bit beyond your comfort zone. And in doing so, know that you might have to think a little bit differently. So for example, if there's a strategy that says, I'm going to have to go spend some money, and you're sitting there going, ooh, I'm not going to pick that one because I don't have any money. What we'll say is that
that's why you're developing this.
That's why you're
is to
developing
figure
it.
that out, to figure out how do you grow that? How do you build that?
It might force you then to start looking at things like investors or to look at different ways of structuring what you do or how it is that you earn revenue. That's part of what strategic planning is to get you out of doing the day-to-day and get you to basically step your company.
If you're a business owner with a specific skill around the trade or something in your business, we'd push you to find someone equally as knowledgeable as you to push you beyond you, because you will have beliefs about your business
Absolutely.
that are strong. And unless you find a strong personality to push you in those, sometimes you may hold them to your detriment. So
remember, just back to spice up your life. Remember that once we figured out that we wanted to go parachuting, that we could then develop the plan that we needed to develop to make it happen. That's actually the next step.
Developing a plan. Next slide, Aaron. So developing a plan is really, once you've identified the strategy, going, how do I put in place a plan with timelines and identify the resources that I need to carry this out?
Right.
The process is pretty simple.
It is.
The process is pretty simple, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of thinking to get there. Sometimes there's different ideas around the direction of the strategy. However, we find that if you can get your people around the table present and pushing on the idea, we can find the plans and we can find the resources, we can find the timelines. So it's meant to pull everyone in the company together.
Yes.
To drive you forward.
So now we're going to go to poll question number 4. This is our last poll question. And again, according to Cascade, what percentage of leaders spend more than 2 hours a month reviewing their strategic implementation plans? More than 2 hours. So that's literally like 30 minutes a week. Five, four, three, two, one.
Survey says
Look at this. This is a smart group.
they're like spot on.
Yes. Only 51% are spend less than spend more than 2 hours a month.
Reviewing.
Which leads us actually into the last, or what we consider to be the last step. And it comes down to execution.
Executing over the long haul requires focus. It requires attention. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and into the struggles, but we know real gains come when we stay with our plans over the long haul and gain momentum.
We think it's really, really important as part of a strategic plan is to actually figure out the steps of how you're going to implement that into your day-to-day management. So is it that you're going to put together if you're in a large company, you might have it might be part of your leadership meetings. If you are a smaller business, it could be that you're going to commit to spending 2 or 3 hours a week specifically on those kind of activities. If you are a medium-sized company, you might look to have somebody that is going to be like the spearhead of those activities.
Accountability is key in implementing these. Somebody has to own these pieces to make sure we get everybody to the table when it's needed. And chances are there's going to be hurdles, there's going to be day-to-day things go on. And the moment you let yourself off the hook, it becomes easier and easier and easier to walk away from that plan. So don't miss out on the opportunity, stay on the plan.
The final thing that that you need to build in success, like you need to build in a celebration. Especially for, in our experience, especially for the really like our little micro business, they work so hard and sometimes they don't celebrate. When you hit those milestones, when you do something amazing, it's important to actually celebrate that because if you've got a team, you want to make sure that team understands that you appreciate the work they're doing. And it's just important to hit those milestones.
Business owners have a tendency to move on quickly.
Yeah.
It's important to celebrate. So before we're done this segment, we are going to answer those questions, but just to save some time, there are a couple of questions that we get asked over and over. And one of those is how long a SWOT itself should take, how long we should spend on them. And the simple answer is it should be as long as it's required to get everyone to see the situation clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So much discussion, detail, understanding the situation clearly. And we know that at times you could go into infinite detail about everything going on.
Like, for example, when it comes to a threat, I guess we could all say that, global warming could, cause all the seas to rise and we could all, flood. The reality is if you're a restaurant in Brandon, Manitoba, chances are the global warming
is not going to be a
flooding you is not going to be the threat. In fact, a threat of single-use plastic, a bylaw changing could be a bigger threat for you.
Another question is more a statement as much of a question is, isn't my budget really a part of my strategic plan? And the answer is no.
Well, a budget can be part of your strategic plan, but a budget isn't a strategic
plan itself.
So a budget is something
it's
that
important.
Remember, a strategic plan isn't meant to be expansive. It's meant to really push you. And a budget basically says, this is what I intend to spend.
This is the boundaries, right?
So resources, having a budget to support a strategic plan is important, but a budget in and of itself is not a strategic plan.
Limiting yourself to a budget will limit your company.
The other one that we get is the question of, do I have to have a vision statement? And
the answer is yes and no.
Yes and no.
A vision's important, but the answer is yes and no.
You need to have a vision for sure. Some people can eloquently have a team understand a vision in terms of words. And in some cases, they do it pictorially. And I just grabbed two different slides here. These next two slides are examples of where someone has taken a visual and made it into a vision, like a vision statement into visual. I only wish I could be this creative. Not my thing, but or not my forte, but I know that this, again, it's really about bringing a group of people or even yourself really saying, okay, where do I want to go? And if you can do that by doodling or you can do that with words,
yeah.
it doesn't matter. The important thing is, can you see where you're going? Can you build a strong enough vision of where, or an idea of where you want to take your company?
So at the end of the day, it's important, and we'd encourage people, just based on the stat that competitors or businesses tend to outperform their competitors by a rate to 3 to 1 by employing strategic planning.
So we're going to open this up to some questions here, I think. Okay. So if you have any questions, we encourage you to go to the chat. And
We have a question here. How do you feel about a mission statement?
mission statement, again, I think it depends on bringing your group together. You know, I've been in organizations that have mission statements, and I think they certainly can help. Jeff and I are probably more lean towards having values and making sure that the employees in your company understand the values of your company. And it's kind of like walking the talk kind of thing. So certainly mission, if you know, that's part of your process, it's not one that we generally worry too much about, but we are big on values. Other questions?
We have a question here. You talked earlier about 10-year plans for large organizations. For smaller organizations, do you think a 2 to 3 year plan is more realistic? As we know, things can change in a minute.
Yes.
Yes, I think we kind of touched a little bit on that, Wendy, is when you're smaller, 2 to 3 is probably pretty much all you could realistically be able to imagine. And the important thing in that vision is at that point, you know, you're not so large that you're trying to, like, you're not like an Elon Musk type of organization where you're having to talk to large scale investors and things like that about where you're taking the company. So yeah, 2 to 3 years. And initially, even with some really small companies, we try to get them pushed in that even 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, and I was going to say that because
it's a little bit of a muscle. You got to push it a little bit.
You got to push it. And if we find that if you're not able to move your time horizon out there, and you don't believe really in the vision, you won't have the execution follow through. So if it's pushed out so far that you can't follow through, then it's less valuable as well.
And yes, I would agree with you, Wendy. Wendy asks, I'm thinking about this, the same would apply to nonprofits. You know, I think some boards have people that are really, again, we'll say it again, it's really a muscle to be able to really get that thinking more strategically. So some boards actually have some pretty amazing big thinkers. And so they might be able to have one that pushes out further. If it's an organization that has really a group of people that maybe don't think as big as that, sometimes getting them into that 2, 3, 4 years, that's perfect. It really comes down to what people where they can envision themselves going. Oh, whoa.
Do you want me to read this?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's no problem. We got a whole bunch here. So Travis and Red Deer, thanks for reminding us you're in Red Deer, Travis. How to manage departments are not aligning with timing of strategic planning objectives. How to manage departments that are not aligning with timing of strategic planning objectives.
I would jump in on that one. If I'm going to do a little bit of a mind read on that one, Travis, in maybe the question, getting them to buy into timelines. And it could be, depending on the change, if one department's feeling more burdened than others, potentially. It comes back to buy-in, and then the discussion initially on buy-in, so that there's it's seen as a need. And then the second is staying to it, accountability, staying to it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever that is in terms of the actions. Just never let it go away. People will use avoidance
Yeah.
of tasks and strategic planning to have it go away. And I am a big proponent in the work we do of staying with it. And I have a big ability to outweight and outpatient departments and groups in terms of moving something forward. It may be a little slower, but we will get it there. I don't go away.
Yeah. Remember that change for everybody's a little bit, can be a
Little
little bit
different.
uncomfortable. It's not difficult for the person that's initiating the change, because we are the ones that want to change. So the person that's initiating it, it's really easy for them. Other people need to know either why. They want to know why. They want to know how it's going to impact them. Remember, we don't like uncertainty. And when we're changing, it creates, for people, it can create a level of uncertainty. So like Jeff said, sticking with it's really, really important.
Sticking with it.
What else you got, Elise?
We got lots of questions here. So we'll go to Rob, and Rob's question is, how do you ensure a strategic plan is followed through, and what are the follow-up process steps once a plan is in place? And maybe you're going to cover that after this slide,
Nope,
but no, okay.
That's where I'll come back to, is building it part of your daily I call it daily management. And so if it's about having a meeting once a week, and you as the leader need to make sure it happens, because it could be that you're going to meet once a week, could be you're going to meet once every 2 weeks, doesn't matter. But as the leader, as soon as you don't, and I think this is the biggest thing that happens with strategic plans, as soon as the leader isn't there, as soon as they make it less important than something else,
Everyone else will.
then everybody else goes, okay, well, that was just flavor of the day. So it really comes down to the leaders of the organization staying on it and staying just diligent and saying, nope, we're going to have the meeting. It could be 10 minutes. It could end up being a 10-minute meeting, but it's still really important to put that commitment to it.
Rob, I would add, we're going to cover quickly a tool at the end of this that I use with my clients, in that when we do strategic planning and outcomes, we all take responsibility for areas and actions and outcomes. And in the targets, if one of our members falls off, they have to do an STP, and the STP is to get back on track. And that tool is a really powerful way to drive something to completion and to notify when something's off track. So
we'll cover that.
Yeah.
That might actually lead into the next question from hashtag Kathy Snellgrove for Premier. Do you lead strategic planning sessions for company?
Sorry, say it again.
Do you lead strategic planning sessions for companies? I feel like you answered that. And what are some resources that you would suggest so companies are not doing the same old when building out their agenda? We have done the SWOT and it was great.
Awesome.
So I guess you're about to lead into that, I think you were saying.
Yeah, I think the other thing, and I've said this before, is sometimes I think adding in other players.
Yeah.
I have been part of other organizations that have invited in say other business people from the community. I've been in ones that have invited customers to come in. I've been in strategic planning sessions where they have brought in a certain type of expertise. And I think it comes back down to, when it's a group of people that have all worked together for a long time, it's easy to kind of let each other off the hook. It's like, you don't tell on me, I won't tell on you. So we don't really get into the tough conversations. When you bring somebody in that's maybe a little different, those really kind of tougher conversations happen. And that's how you make sure you don't have the same old.
This might lead into it too. My good friend Rita, she asks, who in your operation is involved in strategic planning? Is it everyone?
In a company our size, absolutely everyone.
And I don't think there's Nani, how can you encourage leadership to hear your ideas, views?
I think I would start with wanting to understand why they wouldn't want to hear them. I would ask that question, especially when it comes to strategic planning, because in all cases, we're trying to take our own filters off and look at the world through our customers, through our suppliers, through other aspects of the world. So the idea of strategic planning is to not see the world as I see it today, but as others may see it as well.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so I think I would be asking from that perspective.
The other side of that one, Nani, is I think a little bit too is being able to bring some data to the game as well.
Yeah.
You know, so if you've got a point of view or you've got something and you can bring some data, or you can, you know, could be like surveying. So maybe it was a customer or something and you wanted to go do some survey work. I think groundwork often helps to make sure that people are listening to you as well.
And then we have, I mean, Brigitte touches on that as well here from World Trade Center. I found including everybody in the beginning stage of the strategic process helps with the buy-in when the plan is rolled out. I think that's a great point. And Christy from Assiniboia Chamber also noted that for them, they include a one-page progress report with every monthly board meeting. It keeps the strategic plan on top of mind. So that's another great point as well. Barry Cooper, they aren't really leaders if they aren't listening. Fantastic point, of course. I don't know why you don't ever listen to me, Barry, but okay. Rita, sorry, Rita did follow up. I must have misunderstood there, but I meant in an organization, is that the leaders, stakeholders, ground crew, etc. Strategic plan seems like a big picture thinking.
You know what? I think that there probably is components that you could have different groups come into. So in case for you, Rita, you might not necessarily have your ground crew in to talk about the strategies, but you could bring your ground crew in first, certainly to help talk to you about your strengths and the weaknesses in your company, so that you as a whole group would know that, you know, this is how, like, because they'll have a very different perspective than say what you would
Absolutely.
have. So you can have your guys come in and talk about, well, you know, like, what do you guys think's really good and what do you guys think's not so good, and then, you know, you might pick a different group then to kind of start talking about what your opportunities and your threats are. Okay, in light of time, we're going to give you
Yes.
another moment again to ask more questions, but we want to actually get this. Jeff kind of alluded to it. We want to show you a tool that we
Yeah.
use all the time.
It's a great tool to really hone the strategic
get you
thinking
thinking.
muscle. And it's called STP, Situation Target Proposal.
Mhm.
It's a simple tool. We use it all the time. And Aaron, if we could get you to go to the next slide, we'll go through
Oh,
quickly.
another one.
One more.
We kind of got
One
behind. That was
more.
but there we
are.
go.
Let's just go through.
Now this looks really, really simple,
And it
but it's
is.
incredibly powerful. So again, like Jeff said, it's kind of three categories of thought that you would have. One is situation.
The first thing you go through in great detail is the situation you're currently facing.
The next one is target. Where do I want to go? And the third one is, how do I get there? The reason that we actually have it in three categories is because a lot of times what people do is they try to simultaneously solve them,
Each
all
of them.
three things.
And we say go through one at a time. Situation, where you are, target, where you want to go, proposal, how to get there, each separately, addressing each line.
Yeah. So if you think back to the strategic planning idea, the situation is really, okay, what's my SWOT? Target is where do I want to go? That's kind of my vision. And the strategies are really your proposals. So it's the same kind of thinking. But again, this is something that you can use on a day-to-day basis. We're going to go through an example
here. So the next slide there, Aaron.
So this is the situation. We're only going to talk situation first off. Situation is the supplier is late on their shipment of XYZ widget due to a breakdown, and they don't know when they're going to be able to ship it.
We only have enough inventory to cover half of our existing orders.
And we have some inventory that could be reworked to meet our needs. So in this first section, we're just really, really describing the situation.
Where are we today? What are the challenges?
So it's not only about the fact that the supplier is late, It's the fact that we don't know when he's going to be able to ship it. And we also know we're now not
short.
going to be able to meet our demand because we're short too.
So to get to where we want to go on the first point, we want to secure a supply of product.
That's
Simply.
the target.
That's the target. That's where we want to go. It's not how we want to get there yet. It's what we want.
It's just, where do we want to get to? What's the ideal situation? Not what am I living with? It's what's my ideal situation? I've got to be able to get that product.
The target is there.
The next target that we have in this case is we want to communicate with our customers effectively and understand who is a priority for shipment. So if we've only got so much, who do we need to get to first?
And then the third one is ensure that our customers know we value their business and appreciate their patience.
So we want them to know that even though we're having a challenge, we want to know that our customers know that we're listening to them. So now once you actually understand what your situation is and what your target is, now this is where our brainstorming comes into play in terms of our proposals.
So on the proposal side, we want to identify other suppliers of the product. Is there another place that we could get this? Or identify other users of the product and see if we could purchase inventory from them.
So maybe Spencer or somebody actually has product that I know he's got. So it's another guy who could be selling. He could even be my competitor, but I know he has that widget. So maybe I could go and get inventory from him. Again, it just gets the wheels thinking about, how do I solve this problem? When you think about another proposal is you could immediately notify your customers and ask them their priority. And then based on, maybe you'll find out that they don't all need it. And so another proposal would be and go and figure out, maybe you can move
Who
around
needs
some of your
it and
customer
when?
orders.
And could we match demand based on what we have today or close to what we have today?
And
finally,
then in terms of making sure our customers know, you might choose to send out a daily status for your customers from the GM so that they know how important this situation is to them. Okay. So it's a really simple tool, but again, it gets us thinking. Remember, it's really, where am I today? Where do I want to get to? And then how do
am
I
gonna
get there?
Each
Okay.
line. Any questions on that quickly?
We're going to let you have questions. Any other questions? You can ask about either that or about the strategic planning.
Nothing yet.
Nothing
Okay.
yet. One of the things that we've made sure that Erin actually has all of these slide deck. So she will be sending that out to you, right, Erin? Yeah. Yeah. So she's going to send that out to you. So if you have any questions, our contact information is in it. So you're more than welcome to call Jeff and I at any time. Oh. Okay. So, just in closing, one of the things that we do know, and
this last year has been indicative of that with so much uncertainty.
We know that for strategic planning and doing some of these kind of things, it can seem a little overwhelming. So one of the things that we've done, if you want to hit the next slide, Erin, is Jeff had mentioned that I write a blog every week. We actually wrote a blog specifically around overwhelm and some of the tricks and tips for overcoming overwhelm. Because a lot of times when, especially when business owners and again, we want to make sure you position yourself that, 8 months from now, when we're out of this, that you have got a plan, that you're ready to go, that you've been building yourself so that you can take advantage of the backside of this, because there will be a backside, I do promise. And so if you find yourself getting overwhelmed, we thought it important to kind of show you some different tips and tricks for dealing with overwhelm. So if you want to throw that in your phone, or as I said, Erin will certainly make sure that you have that. So Jeff and I love doing this stuff. If you can tell, we kind of geek out about it. But part of it is we love to see companies grow. And we love to see what, businesses that you would never think could be what they are just doing some amazing things. And we're fortunate enough to
And
get
you're
to
so
do that.
important to our communities, fabric of our communities, everything that goes on centers around business and employment and all of those things. So it's really important stuff to us.
We so appreciate the chamber having invited us
Asked,
to be part of
yes.
this, because it is so much fun anytime we get to hang out with the chamber and do work with them. You know, when I was talking about Greg at the beginning, one of the things that I have watched this gentleman over the last 8 years go through a lot of ups and downs, and he has been through a crashing Alberta market. He has gone through a changing dollar. He has gone through dry wells. He's gone through all kinds of craziness. And one of the things that I know has allowed him to continue to remain in the field, and in fact, I'll let you in on the secret. I think you won't shoot me too badly. He's actually right now working on how to build a refinery, a small refinery to actually service and produce some actual diesel fuel down in that southwestern corner of the province. And that doesn't come because he wakes up tomorrow and thinks about, what do I need to do today? That's because he is literally continually looking at a strategic plan and planning out. And so when things like a crashing oil price, he knows how to get in front of that and get on the side of it, or whatever you want to say, so it doesn't totally take out his company. And I think that, I invite all of you to really seriously
look at this,
get a strategic plan, spend a little time at it. And I'm going to tell you that coming out the backside of this, you'll do some really amazing things. And know that at any point in time, if you have any questions, we're only ever a phone call away. Just give us a call. We'd be more than happy to answer questions.
Thank you all.
So with that, I think we're probably somewhere in our
a little
time
bit
frame.
out of time here, yeah.
So if, we'll say that we'll leave everybody. And thank you again all so much for coming and being part of this today. We appreciate it.
And on the other side of that, thank you, Jeff and Kathy, for doing this for us today. We like hanging out with you just as much. So, and it was great. I wrote down a lot of notes.
Excellent.
For myself.
And she never pays attention, so that's speaking very highly.
It's true.
All right, thanks guys. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.